Hey folks, Coach Patrick here, Endurance Nation. Just preparing for a quick Facebook Live Ask Me Anything session. So while we're waiting for people to join in, I'm just going to do some administrative stuff here real quickly, make sure I'm all set up and good to go. I want to thank everybody for joining today. I know many of you guys are homebound, like myself, like my family, and definitely presents a new set of logistical challenges. And that's part of what I'll be talking about today. I imagine the video is going to have about 5 to 10 minutes of administrative time with me, just kind of presenting out to you guys a little bit of information and then taking any questions. What's up, Jorge? You guys can definitely to type in your questions to me. I'll be happy to answer them as we go. I've made sure that I have a snack because Coach Patrick always has snacks, and I have some fluids, so I'm super well hydrated. And I'm ready to rock and roll. So I'm just going to give it a second here, let a few more people to join before I dive in and talk a little bit more about the topic of the day and then begin answering your questions. So I hope you guys have some good questions for me, all right? So just some quick background. My name is Patrick McCran. I am the head coach, founder of Endurance Nation. Been playing the endurance game now since 2001 as an athlete, since 2004. Full-time as a coach, and I am fortunate enough to run an online community of athletes across the world, which, 10 plus years ago sounded crazy. Today, in the times we are living in, sounds like, well, I don't know, like a really great idea to have a bunch of athletes connected online who can support one another. And my goal here today is to kind of bring some of that community, some of that essence out to you guys, hopefully be able to answer some of your questions regarding training and racing, give you some context within which you can make those decisions, hopefully help you frame out what a best way forward is for you, and ultimately kind of keep you on track. And one of the main things that I've been wrestling with as a coach, as an athlete, as a parent, as a community member, is drawing the line between sort of community health and personal health. And for me, I'm not sure about you, but for me, exercise is a huge component of my personal health. It's part of my routine. It's part of my daily being. At this point in time, I'm not quite sure what my life would look like without exercise. I know at one point in time I will find out. But I do know that I think I and the world will probably be worse off if exercise is not part of the equation. And so what I'll be talking about today is how to frame exercise in a way that works for you, works in your situation. No single piece of guidance, etc., will apply to everybody. But at the same time, I want to give you some parameters within which to have this conversation. It seems really, like I said, almost selfish, almost out of touch to talk a little bit about self-care. But I think in times of crisis and times of stress, making sure that you yourself are well situated, well taken care of is a critical component. There's a reason why on the airplane, when the oxygen masks come out, you put the mask on yourself first, and then you help the person next to you. Got to make sure that you're functioning and you're doing well before we can help others, right? And I think ultimately our actions and how we act are examples for others, and how we act will help support others. And the idea being that the healthiest version of you, mentally, physically, etc., is going to be a better version of you for the world as well. Okay. I have published, just for reference so people know, I have published a guide on the Endurance Nation website, which is endurancenation.us. You go to resources and there's a guide section, and you can go to that page, and that has all of what I'm going to talk about in big bullets and blocks, including an image, like a flow chart of how you can go through the process of deciding what to do for your season, how you're going to handle your season, and how things are going to work out across the course of this year, based on your actions, not based on external things. Inside Endurance Nation, we don't like to focus a lot on things that we can't control. So the things you can control are the actions you're taking on a daily basis to stay healthy, to stay fit, stay on track, and hopefully be able to, at some point in time, pivot to an event that works for you, that is happening, and is something that you can kind of put the stamp on this year and say, okay, we closed it out, we did really, really well. So there's a couple different tiers of situations that we can kind of go through. And first and foremost, I want to foundationally say that I think the entire framework really only works if you're thinking about that sort of safety component, right? And so, doing an event or not doing an event, whether or not it's happening or not, I think the first line of decision making is saying, is me participating in this event or me doing this activity, is it putting me in a situation where I'm endangering others or endangering myself, or not contributing overall to that greater good? And I think that's the first line that you have to cross, and the question you have to wrestle with. Just because Race Director X or Company Y or website whatever says, hey, we're going to do this thing, we're going to meet here, we're going to have this event, we'll do whatever, doesn't mean it's necessarily the best idea. And so really, I think that internal guide for you is what's really important. So determining, is this really fit with or align with what I believe is best practices or what I think is great related to how we're dealing with the situation on a community basis, right? So starting with that first step. Moving beyond that, then we start talking about the races themselves. And different races are doing different things. It's been really, really interesting. And I'll be curious to know if in the future, when we look back upon this time, if there'll be any sort of accounting for the fact that some races, some events, some directors, some companies have taken action and others have not. Not to say that that's a function of apathy for the situation, but rather I think some organizations are tightly managed, well coordinated in planning ahead, and others are not. And so my guess is that even as a result of that, there'll probably be some financial implications as well, that well-managed organizations will survive and others through this period of time. So you think about what those races are saying to you and whether or not they're going to happen. There's two types of decisions happening right now. Well, three really. Okay, so some people are just outright canceling. They're saying there's no event. We'll see you next year. Good luck, right? Some people are postponing. They're saying there's no event right now, but we are going to have an event either later this year or next year. We'll keep your money. We're all good. So they're not taking the money. They're just saying we're going to postpone. And then the third type is saying no word at all, right? Like we may do it, may not do it. We're going to wait and see. We're going to wait. And I understand that as well from a business perspective of saying it may be too early to make a decision right now based off the information that we have. I don't want to go change everything and then have to change everything back. But at the same time, it does put your customers or you guys, the racers, the athletes, the end users, in a tough position related to how do you make a decision, which is why I'm having this talk today, an opportunity to kind of put you in charge about your season and see what you want to do. So as you go through the process, once you cross that line of safety and decided yes or no based on that, and then you get to the event line and you understand, know the event's not happening for whatever reasons, then you can start to decide how you're going to manage the rest of your year. The reason why races are important is because they are the bookends of our season. They're when we finish a year and when we start a new year, right? So we finish a year at a race, we recover, we're done, and then we have a new race and we build our year up to that new race. Without a race, many athletes struggle to find motivation and consistency in their training without that external event on paper. As a coach, I find this fascinating. I think it's really interesting to see what percentage of athletes really need that external motivation and what percentage of athletes just don't, and they train. And I'm sort of taking some notes here, and I'll be curious to see sort of how people play out across the year and whether or not my judgment follows. But I really believe that those of you or athletes who really need external motivation for an event versus those who are intrinsically motivated, I think this is an opportunity for you to kind of find some of those internal motivators that will drive your training, because internal motivators are things that you control. The external things like the events, the weather, those things you do not. And when you are affected by external factors that determine whether you want to train, race, or you're motivated, that ultimately can really impact your training, right? So let's say you're training for a marathon, there's a long run on the calendar, but it's raining this weekend. External factor makes you say, oh, I'm just going to go inside for like 20 minutes on a treadmill. I did my thing, but it's raining outside, right? Whereas the athlete who's intrinsically motivated to say, hey, I've got this run today and I'm going to do it, whether I'm doing it outside, whether I'm doing it inside, whether I'm doing half out, half in, or I'm moving it to another day or whatever. But the intrinsically motivated athlete stays on target more often, in my assessment, than those who are affected only by external factors. So those of you who are really impacted by the changes in the season, time for you to try and find a couple internally oriented things that can help guide your changes. So some ideas that if your race is out of your control right now is to pivot and say, hey, I'm going to pick a race later in the season to give me a further target away, and then pick some other things that I can control. So example things that you can control that we focus on inside the team are run frequency. That's an easy one because anyone can put on shoes and just go outside more, dependingly. So run frequency, how many runs can you do a week? Can we set a target? Can we set a mileage goal for you and try and see if you can hit that mileage goal? Or for those of you just getting started, can we set a step goal? Your watch or your phone will track steps. Let's get some step goals going. Start getting some fitness going in that regard. We could set some goals related to strength-related items that will improve your competency in your sport. So maybe some upper body strength will help you if you're a swimmer, or some lower body strength will help you if you're a runner. you can start doing some exercises related to that. And again, saying, how many, push-ups can I do? How long can I hold a wall sit? And start challenging yourself in some other areas that are things you control that you can do independent of everyone else, but that are contributing elements to your success later on down the day. Other more complicated items are related to things like body composition and nutrition, which is very individual, but another opportunity to exercise some control and make some positive lifelong changes in behaviors that will sustain you well beyond your athletic career. So those are the external intrinsic sort of conversations, right? And so when I think about races being canceled, here's a great example of that external versus internal focus, right? So let's say you were going to do a half marathon or a marathon. That race was canceled. Well, what do? Some people say, well, I'll find another race. I'll just go out and find another race, or this year's done, or whatever. But other athletes will say, well, you know what? We have one on the team right now, a good friend of mine, Robin. She's like, okay, my marathon on April 5th has been canceled. So I'm running a marathon on April 5th. I'm just going to do it myself. And she's going to figure it out. April 5th to figure out how she can map out a course that's safe. She can get some support and so on. Is it going to be the perfect fastest marathon with race photos and a finish line and cheering and all that stuff? No. But she had a goal, she's trained for it, and she can do it, and she's going to do it. She's going to set out that plan. So to me, that's someone who's very strongly internally motivated and can still check that box. So for those of you who are losing an event early this season, but can still make that event happen, half marathon, those are easy things. If you were going to do something like a half Ironman and you have an indoor trainer, you can do your indoor bike and then run off that bike and get your half Ironman reward right there. We can still keep you on track with your training, super important for the psyche, for your fitness. We can check the box on that event and say, I did it. And honestly, I'll find some way to get you medals for doing that stuff indoors, because come on, that's legit. And then we can refocus on the rest of the year as we move forward. But you get that sense of validation of the training that you've done. It keeps you on track with the consistency and the structure that you've had for the whole entire year thus far. Many of us started back in November or December, so it's been quite a few months. Then we have a real full stop period where we can reassess and say, what am I going to do moving forward? Right. So I definitely encourage people, if you're able to do that, let's take advantage of that. Let's have that event. If it's out of your control or there's just no way you can do it given the situation, that's also fine. It's time for us to pick a new event and restructure your season. And that's ultimately what I'm doing right now inside the team. People are submitting their races to me again, asking me more questions, and I'm making adjustments to the entire year. And the reason why those adjustments to the entire year, second half of my talk, question opportunity time's coming. And if you have questions, put some more in there, okay? So I get that, okay? I see Jim's posting some questions to me. Paul, Scott, Francis, Mike, go ahead. You guys can write some questions in there as well if you have them. The second element of the conversation here is around that planning side. That's because you've had a race, then there's structure to your season. Inside Indorstation, we build fast before we go far. And so we've done a lot of quality intensity training on the bike. We've done some run durability early. We started to add volume incrementally to prepare you for that race prep period, to prepare you to peak for your event. We don't stay at that high level of fitness all year long. And so we build you up. So if we've been building, was gone, that target is now gone, we have to change that fitness trajectory. We can't keep building you up because you've got a race later in the season. Your body can only handle so many of those fitness peaks in a year, whether it's physically in terms of the structure of your body, right? I can only run so many miles for so many weeks before I break. Or if it's just general overall health, that high-end training puts a lot of stress on your body, weakens your immune system, and this is just not the time to have that happening. So we'll need to reassess your season, pull back, and put you into a different level of training. Inside Endurance Nation, we have several phases from sort of preparation at the beginning of the year, our winter training, our out season, our specificity phase, and then we have our race phase. So if we're pulling you out of the race phase, we can drop you back into one of our specificity plans. So it's our bike focus plan, an opportunity to build single sport strength and fluency. It's a lot less complicated than a traditional training plan, which is a very easy option for many of our athletes. We can take you another step back and put you back in the intensity element, which is either our out season program or our Get Faster program, both of which include shorter workouts with a little bit of higher intensity, allow you to stay sharp. It's a change in training focus for those of you who've been in race prep. We take some of the volume out of the equation. Not so easy to do long hours right now, especially if you've got kids and life is crazy. But you can do some of these shorter, more focused workouts. They're a little bit more intensity. You can get them done inside on a trainer. You can get them done outside running around your neighborhood. And then we can refocus that once we get more clarity and sort of general future, general ability to get outside and do more. And honestly, up here in North America, the weather is changing, albeit slowly. And so the opportunities to get outside are increasing for sure. So you'll have opportunities to do more work and more volume later. This does cover MAT for people. Now, last bit here is just that there are some folks who don't have any resources for their training. They do not have an indoor trainer. They're not connected to Zwift or TrainerRoad or to Rouvy or whatever software you use. They don't have a treadmill in their house, and they're really stuck. And they've been reliant on gyms or external areas to get fitness and training done. This is definitely, I think, one of the more challenging aspects of being an endurance athlete when you don't own those items yourself. I'm not saying you need a beautiful home gym. I don't have that home gym myself. All my stuff lives in my garage next to my lawnmower and lots of other assorted tools and a big old mess that I've made down there. But if you don't have access to those resources, life becomes really challenging. So we have to then start sort of from the inside out again and say, all right, what are the elements that I do have under my control? I can walk, I can hike, I can run, I can do body weight circuits, I can get some exercise done inside my house, and I can get something done internally here for a certain period of time to keep me going. Is it ideal? No. But honestly, at this stage of the game, nothing is ideal with regards to our training and racing. And so what I would be consistent, it gives you something to do every day. So you have an objective for your training. You get the structure that really many of us type A athletes just simply require to function. And it gives you that sense of accomplishment. You can say, hey, in 10 days, I've run 10 times, right? Or I've covered 10 miles for you beginners, right? Or I've covered 20 or 30 miles for those of you who are really strong out there. That concept of gaining control and letting that happen, that's fantastic. So when we come back to regular training somewhere in the future, hopefully not too far away in the future, you're going to have a baseline level of fitness we can build off of. The worst possible thing that happens to athletes every year that I work with is that gap in their training. That gap is usually related to injury or illness, or sometimes factors out of their control, like work, employment, life. And when we have a gap inside your training where there's nothing happening for 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time, it takes a long time to climb back up to the level you were at before we can even get back on the trajectory for where we were. So do you need to be doing everything you've always done? No. Situations are obviously significantly out of our control and sort of really challenging from a logistical perspective, but you can do something. And doing anything, aerobic or cardio, or even functionally strength related if need be, can help you transition through this period and ultimately get you back on track faster somewhere down the road. And for me, I really feel like taking the best next step is the most important thing here. Not focusing on, oh, I was supposed to, ride 6 hours outside as part of my race simulation workout this weekend, which I can't do, and saying that I can't do what I want to do, so it's automatically a failure. It's to say, all right, I was supposed to do that, but what is the next best thing that I can do? Is it bike 2 hours? Great, let's do it, right? If it's run an hour, great, let's do it. Chart that course. And that's what I'm doing inside the team with athletes. And for those of you not on the team, if you have questions, you want to put them on our Facebook page, I'll be happy to answer those for you as well, because I think that is by and large the most challenging aspect of it all. And then last but not least, of course, if you begin to feel sick or you are not feeling well, I definitely recommend that you turn off all training and take care of yourself. Recovery is massive. If you are an athlete, you are predisposed to being healthy. You've got the infrastructure, the fitness. If I had $1 for every time I saw a doctor who said, oh my God, I wish all my patients were, half the size like you are, or well taken care of like you are. I think we all have a good baseline level of fitness, but for many of us, it's a fine line between being fit and also being really, really tired. And so walking that line right now is really important. So take this time to listen to your body, get the extra sleep in if you can, take care of yourself, be really smart about everything you do. Guidance I've seen online and that I've put on our guide page, which is under resources, guides on EnduranceNation.us, talks a lot about washing your hands pre-post workout, because you are in contact with your face for a great deal of those sessions. You're, touching bars and things and putting them inside your mouth. You want to make sure your hands are clean, bacteria-free as possible. Okay, awesome. All right, that said, I want to turn over for some question times. I've gone almost half an hour, and I apologize for that. I see Jim's writing some stuff here. Let's see here. Jim's talking to us about deferment, race, and postponement. There's a great article today. I don't know if people saw it in Slow Twitch over at slowtwitch.com from a race director talking a little bit about how race directors are managing their events and their athletes and their responsibilities and the challenges that lie therein. I appreciate both sides of the coin. In many cases, Races are one-day events, but there's a lot of costs associated before the event to get it ready. Equipment, awards, gear, all the things that you have to do ahead of time, and then there's stuff you need to do on the day. Some of that stuff can go back to the athletes possibly, but some of it is a sunk cost, and there's not much you can do to defer. Personally, we run several camps here inside Endurance Nation, and I've taken the line that I'm going to try and do my best to refund back as much as I possibly can. I think that treating other people like you want to be treated goes a long way. I mean, I've only been in business for 14 or 15 years, but it certainly paid me well. Is that okay? Jim's talking about that training versus racing addiction. Sure. So I love that concept. Like, some people are addicted to races, and I see it on the team. When people sign up, they submit their races. Some people, I've got room for 3 races. Some people will say, your onboarding form is broken because I can only submit 3 races. Here's the other 14 races I wanted to include on top of the 3 that I did include. People are real racers and race heavy. They either just love to race, or races are a tool they use to build their fitness across the year. And other people just have one race, and it's just much more about the training. This is definitely an opportunity for us to focus on the training side of things, for sure. And yes, Jim, I certainly hope that the races will come back. Okay, this is Joe talking to us. What's up, Joe? He says, Victoria Half Ironman has been canceled. Been talking with some of the other racers for that event, and if the border is open, we're going to try and run it anyway. Okay, I think that's a great example, Joe, of trying to figure out what that fine line is. And I think if you can cross that threshold of the safety side, right, that doing that is safe and everything is okay, whether it's safe like you jumping into water and swimming, or safe in terms of crossing borders and transporting people around, then by all means, I encourage you to stay active and stay on course with what makes sense. I understand that race directors and events themselves have a high set of liability related to the events and what could possibly happen there. Not to mention, they are heavily dependent on municipalities for access to resources, to staffing, like police and medical personnel. And my understanding is that there's not a lot of wiggle room in that space right now for events, just given the anticipated need in the ER, et cetera, for that, right? All right. Here's ECAT talking to us. I am not doing stupid indoor races to check the box, but I like other challenges. Tell me how it is. Talk straight to me, ECAT. All right. So changes in body composition should be easier to do when not training super hard too. I agree 100%. So this is a chance for us to kind of refocus. So for many people, we have a sort of a starting up period to our year, and then we enter this race prep focus. And that race prep focus is really dialed in on the race. Got to run this much, got to swim this much, got to bike this much, whatever, right? All that sort of dialed in. You've got it all planned out. But when that happens, there's some things that you simply cannot focus on. Like focusing on body composition in the race prep period is super hard. It's almost the exact opposite. It's antithetical, because we can't cut your calories and do lots of work that require more calories at the same time. At least not do that well, right? And so, right, if we take some of that work off the table, we can say, hey, how can I sort of regain control of the body composition? This is an opportunity. Let's look at it from the bright side for me to reboot. I only had 3 months to train to prep before. I exited that, 5 pounds over where I ideally would be, where I could be healthy in that space. So let me take this time to get myself back on the right side of that 5 pounds. So when the season does come around, I can start back up again and stay successful for sure. Yeah, that's a great one. I love that. Okay. All right. Al says, my life goal has always been to, quote, have fun with your fitness. Sometimes the fun's racing. Sometimes the fun is playing, like riding with friends or skiing in the winter. To have that fun, I have to be fit, and that requires frequency and consistency. Lou Hollander, who was doing Ironman Kona into his 80s, when asked, how do you keep going, said, I make sure to go anaerobic every day. There's great examples of some athletes who've been at this game for forever. People like Lou and people like other amazing masters athletes, senior athletes, who get out every day and do something. Maybe some of you know them in your neighborhood. Maybe you've only read about them online. I definitely have been looking more to our older athletes for some guidance and perspective on this moment. It's a good reminder to us that I've been in this game since 2001, but that was only in the second, sort of rebirth of the Ironman space until now. And that there have been decades of sports and other challenges during times of sport long before we got into it, and getting some perspective on how to handle, just sort of how to handle general sense of, do the right thing as citizens, how do we take care of ourselves? How do we be socially responsible? These are things that we've sort of grappled with digitally or thinking about, but I think some of our parents, our grandparents, people we know have had some personal experience with that, and that's just a great resource also to kind of check into. So certainly worth checking out. I do agree. If you can do anything every day, it makes a big difference. It doesn't even matter. I've told people when they're traveling, for example, if you can only go outside and run a mile, like literally half a mile out, half a mile back, you're not even warmed up. I'll take it. It's a mile. You did something. The muscles worked. We're good. To me, that's a check, and I've kept that streak alive. What I try to avoid is people who get to the place where they say, I'm training for a marathon. My weekend runs are 10 miles. If I'm not running 10 miles, why would I put my shoes on? When you start getting into that duality and sort of that, black white comparison of like yes or no, and everything below this is no and everything above this is yes, I think from a fitness perspective, you're doing yourself a disservice. There's a chance here to really build some really good habits related to health. It's almost, like I said earlier, a reset time, and this is a great time to do it. So whether you follow the advice that I was talking about from Lou Hollander or other folks who've been taking care of themselves and have proven they have a good methodology and approach to staying healthy over all the ups and downs, I do encourage you to explore that space for sure. Absolutely. All right. Sheila says, too much intensity will tax the immune system if recovery is not taken seriously. Can't agree enough with that. Sheila is our resident nutrition and just volunteer lifeguard for all things dumb inside Endurance Nation. She's saving our athletes all the time. And I agree 100%. One of the upsides of our winter training program with the out season is that we do a lot of intensity on the bike, but not on the run. And there's almost always 24 hours between training sessions, right? And so when we think about what that means across the course of a week, especially right now, you can have very low training volume just because of life constraints and other things you need to do, but you can still get a quality session and recover. So if you're concerned about recovery or you don't have great nutrition or the time to help you recover, then alternate days. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, do some challenging, shorter, harder work. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, dial it back, be more aerobic, focus on recovery. Almost all of us at this point in time working from home don't have excuses for sleep, unless you're just binge watching all the Netflix. But you can certainly get some good, consistent quality sleep. And now's the time to do it to facilitate that recovery because, and this is an important point that I didn't mention earlier, you have to remember that, when you experience stress, your body excretes cortisol, right? You get sort of cortisol in our system. And your body doesn't really differentiate between stress from a workout or stress from life or interpersonal stress, financial stress. It's just stress. Your body just says it's stress and the body responds accordingly. And so you may have had only a 20-minute workout today, but you had a 4-hour crazy hard day at the office, including, having to have tough conversations with staff, whatever that may be, or making really tough decisions about your clients or just your own work. That's all been stress. That was a 5-hour stress session today in your body, which is just like doing a half Ironman for some people. And that's a lot of work to recover from. So really being, I think, cognizant, listening to your body. One of the things that I've been doing on my watch, I've been dialing in that, oh my God, I don't know if I'll be able to find it. I've got that resting heart rate zone popping up on my watch, which I totally can't find out, but I found it last night. Take a look at your daily resting heart rate. Is it consistent? Are you staying on track? It's just a great sign for you as well. Your Garmin watch, Apple Watch, whatever watch you should have to use, or you can take it every morning, just a good baseline level of health. Okay. All right. So Jorge asks, without having a VASA indoor swimming ergometer, which is one of our partners and sponsors, awesome resource. You can find them at VASA on the Google VASA VASA or swim ergometer. What kind of indoors drills can replace a swim session? So Al mentions stretch cords, shoulder dips. Janine has that she posted here as well, which is great. There's great resources out there. In general, the guidance I gave in our guides, which is under resources guides, on the EnduranceNation.us website. When you replace a swim workout, we're replacing two components. We're replacing the aerobic component of swimming, and we're replacing the sport-specific strength. Okay, strength in a swim workout is really interesting because you're in the water, so you're lighter, and you're horizontal, you're hydrodynamic, so you're doing even less work than you would otherwise if you were doing a regular gym session. So we don't need a ton of strength. So if you had an hour swim, like I tell people, you're going to swim 3,000 yards, which I would just call an hour in general math. You've got about 15 to 20 minutes of strength, and the remainder of that hour is basically aerobic time. And so you can do swim cords, stretch cords, etc., hook them up to a door or hook them up however the system works. Do it safely. Make sure no one's going to open that door on you. You're not going to get hit by those bands because, boy, that'll leave a mark. And you can do 15 minutes of those bands, at which point in time your shoulders, your back, your triceps are going to be torqued, like totally toast. And then the other commensurate time, just fit it in aerobically if you can. Get on the bike and spin zone 1, zone 2, go out for a short brisk walk, etc. Sort of complement that session in 2 specific ways. But one of my hopes is that people are really going to spend some time thinking about swim chords and make that part of their routine, whether it's a warm up, sort of daily addition to their training in healthier times when we do have access to the pool. Okay. All right, who we got? Lindsay mentions, oh, why can't I get a refund? Thanks for posting that link, Lindsay. I really appreciate it. Let's see here. Okay, Janet's asking, per Sheila's comment, can we quantify using CTL, chronic training load, or TSS, your training stress? How much intensity is too much? That's a great question. This is a really athlete-specific question because each of us handles intensity differently based on a couple of different factors. Just sort of functionally where you are, right, from a sort of like health perspective. If you've been training for a while, your ability to handle intensity is significantly better than someone who's not been training over time. Then we skill in the sport that we're doing. So cycling, not a high skill sport because you're sitting down and you're on a fixed system where your feet have to go around. But running is very dynamic. Running intensity can be very stressful for some people who are just not in great running shape, as I mentioned earlier, or just not functionally good runners and can do some potential damage to their bodies. So I personally recommend, in sort of cascading order of importance, that you would do intensity on the bike first, and I would look at run second. And I would also do, if you're going to do strength work at home, some kind of circuit system where you're doing, alternating push-ups with something cardio, like push-ups and jumping jacks, or running in place, or skipping or whatever it is, like that. And so that's kind of my way to kind of get cardiovascular work done in addition to the strength, and it's a much faster thing. Think, P90X or whatever else systems are out there. I'm not saying do P90X, but some flavor thereof of matching strength and cardio. So from a daily quantification standpoint, what we're looking for me, for more experienced athletes, I would look at just from a daily TSS dosage, right? Because there's lots of different ways to get TSS. 100 TSS points is meant to represent an hour at threshold. And you can get 100 TSS points by going for an hour and crushing yourself. Or you get 100 TSS points by going for 2 hours and doing it at a much more moderate intensity. So for me, I would basically say for the more advanced athletes training for Ironman races, you can look to get 100 TSS a day on average. 700 TSS a week is kind of a baseline for you. And how you handle that TSS is a function of your ability to do work. So what I would hesitate to do is athletes who have that 100 TSS baseline for advanced athletes, or say 80 TSS for intermediate, or 60 to 65 TSS for beginner, that you get more TSS than that in a day in an intense workout. So 100 TSS in an hour workout, hour 10 workout, that's just about right for an advanced athlete. If your TSS per day is about 80 to 85 for that intermediate athlete, but you go out and get 100 TSS in your intensity session that day, you've exceeded your budget and would probably need to come back down a little more accordingly. And I would kind of use that daily reconciliation to make sure I'm staying on track. So if I'm an intermediate level athlete and I've got like an 80 to 85 TSS day of budget, I exceed that on my intensity day. My next day, I'm going to take it down a notch and allow myself to recover, taking some of the TSS from the next day. Normally, I look at things on a macro level, like how much do we have in a week? But I really feel like right now, each day can be different depending on our capacities for training and the friction of life, that it's better off to kind of have that daily budget where you can kind of do the math up and down and say, I've got 100 TSS a day. I did my intensity today and I earned 80 TSS. I'm underneath my budget. I'm good. Great workout, all set. And I had 20 TSS in the bank to move forward. I think that may be better. Sheila's got a little more on the art side of things than the science. How long does it take you to recover from that workout? You can look at your resting heart rate. You can just see how you feel. Ideally, in standardization, we talk about having no one workout pushes other workouts out of the way. So whatever you do today, you can still do what you need to do tomorrow. That's another sort of baseline. It's more RPE associated decision making as well. All right, Ken's here. What's up, Ken? All right, Rory's asking compared to, all right, let's see. I can recover from long, slow TSS much faster than hard TSS. Females are very different. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So Jen is typing for Rory. All right. Rory must be multitasking. So Rory, I think this is a good question to ask just from a work and recovery standpoint. So how do you figure out how much work is too much work? Well, first off, if you start with your baseline training program, already built in is work and recovery. So we start with that. And we start modifying that. If you can't pick up another plan and put that in, which has work and recovery built in, if you are rolling your own dice every single day, just kind of trying to lay out your own thing, then you can kind of use that day-to-day guidance. And I would start with that budget based off what I said earlier, 100 TSS per day for the advanced athletes right now, 80 to 85 for intermediate. That's 60 to 70 range for the beginner athlete. That puts the beginner athlete, say, at 70. That's 490 TSS in a week. In a general training week, that's a great sort of intermediate level target to have. And that gives you a daily budget, and then you base your workouts off of that daily budget. Like Sheila said, everyone, and I mentioned earlier, everyone recovers differently for some workouts. Some people do a hard run workout. We may be both, you and I may be same caliber of athlete. I'm a better biker, you're a better runner. We both go do a run, fitness-wise, numbers-wise, CTL-wise, everything looks the same, but that run's much where I am in my time of the season versus where you are in your time of the season. Or that run may be harder for me because I live in a hillier place than you live in a less hilly place, etc. Not all the numbers will be captured equally. So one of the metrics, again, is that daily number to just make sure that you're staying below or at your budget or making decisions accordingly afterwards. Or, as Sheila mentioned, how do you feel the next day? So a great example would be I use a lot of Zwift races for my indoor training. I was doing some Zwift yesterday, and yesterday was the tour of something. Who knows? So many dang tours in Zwift. And it involved climbing the Alpe d'Huez, which ended up being like an hour-long workout with 50 minutes of just really, really hard training. And I definitely, between that and the next ride I did just thereafter, exceeded my budget for work in the day, really, on the bike. But I had a run scheduled as well. And so I really, really had to dial that run down 40 seconds, 45 seconds per mile slower in the day because I had exceeded my budget earlier in the day according to my training program. I was in the workout, I was having a great time, really challenging myself, trying to set a PR time on the climb, but had to make a compensation for that later in the day because I'd just done too much. In fact, I had to go to bed early last night. I was exhausted. That was a crazy workout. And so I think making those decisions over time is really important. And I think this is something, again, a positive that can come out of this current time as you're going through managing changes is to become much more in tune to how your body is responding to workouts. I think generally speaking, workouts are a part of many different things that we're putting together in a given day, including work responsibilities, personal responsibilities, kids, family, whatever else is going on. And, for many times, we don't, once we take our shoes off or our bike shoes off, we're done thinking about working out and we're on to the next thing. But our body's still processing that. This sort of this long tail of recovery, even though you've moved right into a work call right after your workout, and then into carpooling or into errands. Your body's still trying to recover in there. And if your recovery period in a normal day involves going to a classroom and teaching for 7 hours on your feet, that's not a great place to recover, right? Versus someone who, sits at a desk or someone who does something else, right? There may be different types of stress that you live on a daily basis, not to mention just how you handle those workloads. So all different individual things to think about. These are great questions, folks. All right, I wonder if Rory has any other questions. I'm going to take a brief pause here, almost 40 minutes into the AMA. Are there any other questions people have about handling late season events that are still pending, or are you going to kind of leave the more complicated events behind and look at simpler events to do or things you can do on your own, like trail running or something like that? I'll be curious to know what people are, the calculus of people out there relative to event choices and the challenges that we're facing right now as a global community. I'm also curious, I wonder how race directors will handle that challenge, right? Will they turn off some of the more complex, challenging events? That's been the rub against triathlons for a long time, is having to have the swim venue and then the length of the bike course and the run course. It's so diverse. It's a very challenging undertaking relative to just a run race or a 24 hours, run however many 3-mile loops as you want race. Those are a lot easier to manage, and athletes are open to the challenge, for sure. I'd also be curious to know how many of you are focusing more on indoor training now, like using tools like Zwift or Ruby or Trainer Road versus riding outside. Those are great resources for you. There's a social component to all of those workouts as well. I've certainly found them a great complement to my regular training. It allows me to train when I want, which has been very helpful, just dealing with other schedule related issues. I don't have to wait for the weather to get warmer. I don't have to wait for the roads to get quieter. I can just go ride my bike on Zwift. And I think that we'll hopefully be seeing more people take advantage of it, kind of get access to the program. And something I did learn the other day, which I wasn't aware of before, but I believe kids 16 and under Zwift for free. So if you've got a kid who's younger than that, they do have access to get in game for free to participate in workout as well. Okay. Yes. Okay, scrolling down here. Hold on, sorry, missing some of the comments here. So yes, Jorge, Tour of Watopia Stage 3, totally brutal, got totally murdered for sure, but fun, gotta love it, right? Great to see people get some stuff done. And also, quick opportunity to give a shout out to those of you on the team who participated in our Zwift Elevation Challenge. Some great numbers from last week as well. Ecat asks, so 100 TSS taxes you the same no matter if it was 60-minute race on Zwift versus 3 hours easy spin? Yeah, so TSS is a unique metric. It's meant to quantify stress. And so, yes, from an equation perspective, you've earned TSS in 3 hours or TSS in 60 minutes. Now, depending on where your fitness lies, depends on how hard that stress is, right? If you've been doing nice long walks in the park or strolling around on your touring bike, and then we put you in a 60-minute race on Zwift for 100 TSS or a 3 hour longer, easier ride, that Zwift race will probably feel harder because you haven't done that type of work recently. But standard saying, yes, they're roughly the same equivalent, and we use those numbers to quantify things. That's why our bike workouts have TSS numbers in them. If you can't do the full 4 hours, if you can earn that TSS in 3.5 hours, I'll take it because it's the TSS time. All right. Okay, so Andrew's asking, have any thoughts on what to do if you're not sure you're going to be able to pull off the Ironman? Yeah, that's a really great question. I think success in an Ironman level requires such a steady ramp up for most people in terms of like baseline fitness, second level fitness, then race level fitness, then the race itself. And so many things have to go right for all of that to work out. And without clarity on the event, it's hard to say, what's the benefit of making your steps walking through all the steps of that progression moving forward. I honestly can't give you any. People have been asking me as if I know the folks who run these races. I can't give you any insight. I think St. George will be telling to see what comes out today. Now that I think today's the end of the transfer deadline, to see what Ironman decides to do with this early season event, and if they give us any clarity on future events as well. I would still continue with the baseline level of training and doing the work associated with it, because you can't get that time back. Let's just say you stop today and you say, you know what, the event's not happening. I'm past the transfer deadline. I'm just stuck. I'm just going to flush this money away. And then in 6 weeks, Ironman says, hey, you know what? That race is on. It's in 5 weeks from now. Things are looking better. We've got the clearance. We're going to have this race. You've lost, 6-8 weeks of training. You can never get that back. Then you have the race, but now you're going to show up and be totally unprepared just to kind of do it. Or you just can't do it at all, So I think you still have that training in your control. So either you continue the training program as listed, or we come up with some, sort of hybrid version of it that's as close as we can possibly get you to go, and keeps you in the game when we get to a place where there's a go, no go on that event decision. Janine is waiting for her May event to be canceled. I'll be doing a lot of solo rides, she says. I have no desire to share porta shots with anyone. Janine, if you make t-shirts that say that, I will buy several of them. That's awesome. I agree 100%. And for those of you who are moving to do more solo rides, if you're not inside, you're going to be outside. Definitely spend a couple extra dollars if you can on getting, the nice bright white light on the front of your bike flashing and the nice red light flashing in the back. So you can be very visible and safe out there on those rides. You can use apps like the Road ID app, the eCrum app, to notify people when you're riding, and they can track you and follow you online, etc. My understanding is they canceled all riding in Spain and Italy just last week. I believe it was posted on Cycling News. And the reason that they gave for no recreational riding was that they couldn't spare an ambulance to go get you should you crash, nor do they have a bed for you in that hospital, because there's people who are really, really sick. So if you do decide to go out on your own and you get an accident, the capacity may not be there. And so in light of that, I don't know where we will be as a country in a couple weeks, but it's probably best if you have some of that tracking stuff as well, so that people who are paying attention, who you know and love, can also assist you or help you out as need be, right? Okay. Jorge is 100% indoors on Zwift and treadmill. I am too. My poor little treadmill is not really suited for me running on it, but I'm going to do my best for sure. You know, social yet distance. Yeah, Zwift is that perfect combination. Hey, Mike, what's up? You get the combination of everyone's right there, but also I can't see or touch anybody. You know, I know, Francis, up in Canada, you guys still have so much ice on the road, which is just crazy for the running piece of it. I really believe that even with the place, and ECAT maybe can advise us, I think even with the shelter-in-place guidance for parts of California, San Francisco area, the Bay Area, that they're still letting people get outside to be active and to exercise. I think we know we need to get outside for something. So even if those runs aren't great, Francis, I'll still take them. Or, you know, make them count more, like get a weight pack on, you know, do something a little different to kind of challenge yourself and, you know, make that workout count twice as much, even if you don't have all the available time to do it, right? ECAT's doing more functional training, which is awesome. Dave's asking a specific endurance station question. For those of us who are exiting the January out season in a few weeks, what do you suggest to replace the swim camp afterwards if the pools are still closed? Great question. So the swim camp is actually, I'll be honest with you, I have to admit, a confessional time, just an evil trick by me to give you something else to do so that you actually recover from the out season. Since I didn't say don't work out, I said swim more. People were like, ooh, this is great, I'll totally do it. When I said don't work out, people said, you know, forget what that guy said, he's an idiot. So recovery is really important. So I continue the out season, get your testing done, and then you get a 2-week period where we want to consolidate recovery and kind of get back to basic level of fitness. So I would plan on taking 2 to 3 days off hard at the end of the out season, especially after those test workouts, 2 to 3 days off hard. And then you've got 10 more days to kind of get back into some baseline level of exercise. I would look into doing some cross training if you can't get in the pool. As others have mentioned, you can start adding swim cords to your routine at that point in time, or do some of the functional training. As ECAT mentioned, it's a great chance to do, even if you just do 2 weeks of it, some functional strength training. It's amazing how much stronger you can get if you do something for 10 or 15 minutes a day for 2 weeks. It's easy enough for you to focus on, and hopefully it'll be part of that transition to the next period. But there's no additional bike or additional run work that happens in that swim camp period that you're missing out on by being intelligent about recovery and simply not getting in the pool. Question about running and crosswalk buttons. I would do lots of elbows on crosswalk buttons, but I'm hoping there's not too much traffic, or maybe use a knee. Or like if you're really comfortable, you can like do like a karate kick over there, which I'm not going to demonstrate because I would probably tear my adductor or something like that. All right, Dan asks, thoughts on not being able to use early season races as tune-ups? They're typically helpful in shaking off the cobwebs. Absolutely. I think that is one of the greater challenges, that athletes really need that early opportunity to kind of race. And just for me, forget about just getting better. It's about not doing all the things that I mess up every year, like forgetting a pump, forgetting to untie my shoes, not attaching my shoes to my bike, not putting the right nutrition in the right bag, not budgeting enough time to do a warm-up. Can we get through all those things without them? Yes. Like, can you do a race without those items? Yes. But it sure is nice to have. So again, you can do some of those race simulation workouts where you can start practicing some of those transition items, or practicing some of those race pace, you know, bike to run workouts, etc. And we can kind of test some of that. That's going to be the best or closest corollary, I think, to actually having an early season race. If you want me to call you, I can call you up and yell at you and tell you that you are drafting and that I hate you and your pink bicycle, if you want me to say that. Experience, that will be free. It might be good for my sanity as well. Scott Imlay deferred from St. George to Coeur d'Alene trail run. Yes, social distance and a 50-mile trail run, I believe, is socially distant enough. Let's see, racing is secondary. Yes, I agree with Jorge 100%. Racing is secondary right now. The priority is flattening the spread curve. We need to understand and be flexible. Just working out is part of mental health. Yes. Hey, Lori, how you doing? Great to hear from you. Inside on Zwift for Billy. Run outside, not going to the gym, no treadmill at home. I agree. Stay away from the gym. I can't think in my personal world of a worse place to go than the gym. It's not on top of mind. Like, just don't go to the gym, right? Let's see here. And as Janine's telling Jorge, don't touch anything. This thing survives on surfaces. I would agree. If you're heading out into public areas, have a pair of gloves or something that you can wear. I've got gloves that I wear, nitrile gloves that I wear when I'm working on my bike. If I'm getting gas for the car, I'm in the post office, like in those places that are sort of heavily connected through people, being really, really smart about it. Again, I'm assuming, from a realistic perspective, that the vast majority of us will in some way, shape, or form come in contact with the virus at some point in time. But our job right now is to slow it down as much as possible. And that means just being really smart about all the things that you do. It's like a game of Simon Says here in the house. Like, did you wash your hands first? Like, Simon Says wash your hands. Like, can't eat, can't serve people. I have no idea. So it's good habits for us all to be in. I know many of you, as we kind of wrap up here, I know many of you have questions about the virus and all sorts of things like that. Unfortunately, lots of great information out there. I do wish you all the best in staying healthy and staying sane during this time, as we've all been kind of asked to take a step back and do something for the greater good. My hope is that despite everything that happens in the next couple of weeks, that we, as a society, whether it's global or you just want to think locally as well, emerge from this better and stronger and wiser for what's happened. And a better understanding of what we need to be safe from a healthcare perspective, like institutional, better understanding of how things affect us globally. Like, who I wouldn't have thought, back in December when this was first published, that 4 months later it would be here and we would be shutting down schools and offices. But some people did, and not just the person who hangs out on the street corner with the billboard sign saying the world's going to end. I think we've all got some really big lessons to learn here related to how we function as a society when we are so connected. So I hope that you stay healthy and safe. If you do have training racing questions, those of you on the team, obviously use your forum threads or attend office hours, which I will tell you about next time, and message me away. Plenty of athletes, you can use the Final Surge inbox to send me your question there because you don't have access to the forums. Those of you not on the team or people who see this later, just go visit us at Endurance Nation on Facebook. Endurance Nation, just facebook.com/Endurance Nation. Put your questions right there in the post box. I'll be happy to answer you back. Basically, that's what I'm doing for the next couple of weeks anyway, so I'd be happy to help you out. And if you go to that guide page on our website, which is under resources guides, on that page is information not only how you can modify your season with a flowchart, there's also a special code you can use to get your first month free. So if you do want to use Endurance Nation for a month to structure your season, click that button, use the code, you'll set up a call with me, I'll plan out your season, give you all sorts of structure, and so you can have a better sense of how to proceed as your events change and so on. And happy to do that for you guys as an opportunity as well. All right, thanks so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I hope you are all staying sane. Being home again with my kids all day is both a blessing and non-blessing at the same time. So I'm working to be as zen as possible about everything that's happening here, and hopefully not show up in the police blotter at the end of this 2 weeks for some maniac stuff that's going on inside my house. I assure you, if someone is screaming and yelling inside my house, we're all having fun. There's nothing to see here. Everybody's having a ton of fun. We're just arguing over like a Monopoly game or something. Who knows? All right. Thanks, folks. I'll talk to you soon. I'll see you guys online for sure, and hopefully soon at the races. Take it easy.